and not a drop to drink. But after a few hours of rain, there is enough to completely flood main city streets from end to end. Enough to stall engines and frustrate pedestrians, and more than enough to make negotiating traffic an exercise in frustration.
The problem fundamentally is that Belize is at sea level, so we are always going to have to live with water. What we have noticed doing our assessment is that the concreted streets have been able to withstand the heavy barrage of rainfall, and we have done a better job, not as best as we can, in terms of cleaning out the drains so that the water dissipates as reasonably soon after the rainfall as possible. The reality is that we are a city that will be inundated with waters, especially when we have such heavy rains that we've had recently. And I think that the best that the municipality can do is to ensure that the streets are properly done, so that, for example, on Freetown Road, you're driving but you're not driving in potholes, and that we clear out the drains in advance of the rains, which we have been doing.
You'll notice the mayor said that his newly cemented streets have been able to withstand the rainfall. We're guessing that he isn't referring to flooding, since it is those cement streets in particular where drainage has been a particularly vexing problem, not only after heavy rains, but even after relatively light rains. The water just does not flow off. That is the reality, even ironically, in front of City Hall.
We have given a lot of thought in terms of the drainage situation. This is why, for example, we're doing the flood mitigation project. This is why we spent $1.8 million on drainage works on some of those newly cemented streets. And we are monitoring it so that we have noticed that there's an improvement in the flow off in terms of the water. It's not where we need to be, but residents have to balance it off with us living in a municipality that is at sea level. We did monitoring on Freetown Road and some other essential areas, and we've actually checked the time, and we've noticed that the runoff has gotten better from last year. Again, because of the rain, you're going to have that all the time, but we've noticed that there are some improvements. Can we do better? Yes. Are we doing better? Yes.
One thing we can say about the mayor, he does stick to his spiel, which doesn't quite answer the question of why streets which never flooded before are now flooding every time the sky is open. So we tried asking again, is there something drainage-wise which was neglected when those awesome city streets were constructed?
We can't afford to do that on every street, and we did a survey. I remember I had this discussion previously. If you ask people, do you prefer only drains or only carriageway, bearing in mind that the city in many cases can't afford both, and the emphasis was on we want the carriageway done first, so that, for example, we did Kyle Mar. We did those streets, we left extensive drains. Space. The flood mitigation project now is coming in, and they're doing the drains, and they're putting in the canal, so that should be an ease of flow. So what we have done is that we did a part with our infrastructure in contemplation that we're going to come back in many of the areas when we get additional funding to finish the work properly with really nice drains. But drains cost money, so we're working with a municipality that is under a budget, and we're doing the best we can.
So there it is. Cement streets, check. Drainage, not so check. We note that on very many of those cement streets, it would not be financially viable or even rational to go back and put in drainage, since that would mean breaking up the streets. Mike Rodon for News 5.